Hello everyone and welcome to the very first episode of VG Fight Night. I'm going to be starting things off right by playing one of my all-time favorite fighting games, Skullgirls. This is an indie fighting game created by a small company called Lab Zero and is currently available on Steam, PlayStation Network, and the Xbox Live Arcade Market for $15. I freaking love this game, so I apologize in advance if the next 20 minutes are just me gushing about it. As you can see, my mains are Fuqua, who is a joke character meant to make fun of reskins. She's a reskin of the character Philia, and Peacock, who is a zoning character that is a parody of old cartoons. And she also happens to be my favorite character, FYI. I just really like the design, I think it's neat, and she has a lot of funny entrances and references and stuff. Unlike some other games that just put references like memes and don't actually make a joke out of it. The control scheme of this game is very similar to Marvel vs. Capcom 2, as the main programmer was... I believe he was the world champion for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and EVO at one point, and they hired him as a consultant for the game. I'm playing on ridiculous difficulty, as this is actually one of the very few fighting games I've mastered, and the only one to date that I've actually won an online match in. But I'm playing through arcade mode right now. That said, the online is very fun and the netcode is completely flawless. You probably can't tell from this footage, as I have to record at 30 frames per second to make the upload smoother, but this game runs at a constant 60 frames per second, with no drops I've ever encountered, which is absolutely amazing considering how gorgeous the game is. Another fun fact, Skullgirls is actually the record holder for most frames of animation in any 2D game ever made ever. It has about 1,800 frames of animation for every character, totaling in about 11,500 frames altogether. Sorry if you hear a ton of controller clacking, but this is a fighting game and that's gonna happen a lot. After all, as we are all aware, the harder you push the buttons, the better you are at the game. That's the first rule of fighting games, friends. Don't forget it. Just excuse me a moment, I have to mess with my controls. So I will edit this part out for a second. Right, that's better.
Alright, show's over.
Skullgirls actually didn't start off as a video game at all. It was just a bunch of character sketches that Alex Ahad, the main character designer for this game, just drew down at random points. You might know him as the guy who did guest art for Scott Pilgrim once. But after a while, he, and several revisions of his characters, he made a prototype using Mugen of a fighting game which would later become Skullgirls. Unfortunately, the prototype was not very good. It had a horrible frame rate, really clunky controls, no sound effects, pretty mediocre art, and some not great music. But that changed when he got programmer Mike Zamont on board, and it somehow went from a small pet project to pretty much what they put all their time and effort into. And thousands of art assets later, several hundred quality assurance people and beta testers, and a brand new composer led to what we now know as Skullgirls, or Skullgirls Encore if you want to be technical, but that's another story. Despite being an indie game, there have been hundreds of people working on this game, some scouted out through the internet to do simple jobs for the animation. And unlike mini-games, and aside from their basic quality assurance team, they actually read pretty much all fan feedback and release updates like weekly for the game for every bug that's been found, and sometimes just to try out new things.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
This is probably my favorite stage in the game. I can't remember the name of it for the life of me, but this is the stage for the DLC character Eliza. And I guess I didn't mention, this game, one of the cool things about it, every time a new downloadable character is released, they are free for the first 3 months as long as you own the game beforehand. So, if you were lucky enough to own the game before the DLC started coming out, which I did, you will have gotten every single DLC character absolutely free. As well as get the ability to test them out during the beta. Granted, the beta versions of the characters are missing several frames of animation, certain attacks, and are often not colored in all the way. But still cool to be able to try something out before anyone else does. Kinda makes you feel like a beta tester. Which, I guess, essentially is what you would be, except you're not getting paid for it. I am very poor. Please pay me. No one's gonna hire me. Give me money. This game's controls and mechanics are very complex, but it never feels like the game's cheating you out of anything. Every single move is instantaneous, and it just has really good game feel overall. And there's a very important mechanic called the IPS, Infinite Prevention System. And the game will detect if somebody is pulling off an infinite combo by spamming, and it will give you a chance to break out of the combo and do a burst. Similar to the burst in BlazBlue, except there isn't a recharge on that. So, you have to learn how to play the game legitimately, because infinite combos like in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 aren't gonna work here. Each character has at least 3 super moves called blockbusters, and they're all unique to the character. No 2 characters have the exact same super move. Getting my butt handed to me by another peacock here. Fuko was able to make up for that though.
Player 1 wins. Ladies and gentlemen, it's
Unfortunately, because the cast is still somewhat small, with only 12 characters, the arcade mode sometimes repeats battles between the characters. But in story mode, that never happens. This game actually has a very impressive story mode. And I totally flubbed that one. But yeah, if you buy this game, I definitely recommend playing through the story modes of every character. Most of them are pretty interesting. The artwork for them is astounding. And believe it or not, they're actually pretty depressing. You will experience emotions. without spoiling too many major points of Peacock's story, she was basically a war orphan who was left disfigured by a band of gangsters, and a laboratory took her in and had her rebuilt into a living weapon, but she ended up going crazy and believing that she was a cartoon. Did you know that this game is actually kind of a big break for some of the voice actresses and voice actors involved? Mainly Sarah Williams, Kim Lynn Tran, Daniel McRae, Christy Marie Cabanos, and Rich Brown all pretty much started their major voice acting roles here. At least, that's what they did to make their name for themselves, due to the very active fan community. The character I'm fighting right now is Parasol. She is the princess of the universe that the Skullgirls game takes place in, which would be the Canopy Kingdom. Fuqua, unfortunately, does not really have a story, as she was a joke by the creators of the game. Sorry, I'm not doing much commentary right now. I'm focusing on trying to finish this fight. Peacock's probably the most annoying character to fight against, even though she's my favorite character to fight as. Alright, I was able to take her out. And that's the only form of taking anyone out I'll ever do. God, I'm lonely. I'm not doing quite as well as I usually do because I think one of Fuqua's moves got changed up. Either that or my controller is on the fritz. But I'll manage. This is Valentine. She is a former member of Last Hope, a band of nurses that used to help the victims of the Skullgirl, which is the main villain of this game, but was captured and now works in her service. That is my Steam window. Ignore that.
Don't even try.
Fun fact, all the music in this game was composed by the same woman who composed the music for pretty much all of the Castlevania games from Symphony of the Night onward. Said composer being Michiru Yamane, just in case anyone was wondering.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime!
This is fun.
This is Cerebella, one of the few characters that actually works for the bad guys. The gangsters that I mentioned earlier, who are known as the Medici family. And they're basically single-handedly responsible for every single bad thing that happens in this game's story. Cerebella isn't evil, though. She's just kind of in with the wrong crowd. Come on, I can't lose to Cerebella right now. Her attacks are extremely powerful. think of her like a Hulk or Potemkin. She moves somewhat slowly, but she has very powerful dash attack as well as several borderline overpowered grapple moves. And here we are at the final boss of arcade mode, Marie, also known as Bloody Marie. And while I praise the controls and fairness of the rest of the game, Marie is completely cheap. So, I wouldn't blame you if you used an exploit to beat her, which is what I'm doing right now. Fuqua's move, Platonic Relationship, stun locks other characters if it hits in every single frame, which means that you can infinitely stun lock Marie, because she doesn't have an IPS system, letting you kind of cheese your way through this fight. Otherwise, it is borderline impossible on higher difficulties. And even with that, Fuqua is down. So let's have to Peacock to do this one. And it looks like I'm not gonna make it. Marie is a very, very difficult boss. Not as bad as Psyche from King of Fighters or anything like that. She doesn't have any insta-kill moves, but she's definitely no pushover. She was originally intended to be a playable character as well, but due to budget restraints, it never came to pass. Just like the super best friends would say, when in doubt, blame it out. Luckily, Fuqua's drill move can either be done off of the air or in the air, and down into the ground. And that's the end of Marie.
And now a word from our sponsors.
If it wasn't for that exploit of the drill move, I probably would not be able to defeat her as easily. Even with it, she's pretty tough.
Why so down tonight? Just another day that didn't go your way. Well, don't you make a side. Just take my hand, don't toss and turn. Let's just lie awake. In just a moment's time, you'll wonder why you ever thought you ever longed for more than you've got. 'Cause baby, you've got you and me. I'm gonna hold you tight through the night. The bed bugs better. Hope that I don't bite while you're counting sheep
So,
in your head.
it's coming to the close of our very first episode of VG Fight Nights. I hope you enjoyed this, and be on the lookout for more episodes in the near future. Some with guests, if things go well.
1, 2, 3 a.m. Or is it midnight still? The wind
As always, this has been Char Disparity. Thank you for watching.